started working with Jack here in 1990 on this. We're sure 1990 was our year. So, but we haven't lost we've just built momentum. We really do have the finest initiative in the world. It has been rewritten and repolished, as Jack insisted, every 2 years for 25 years. Chris Conrad was working with us a lot in the last 4 or 5 months to do our last little polish on it this year. No major changes. We're always just trying to secure the wall of protection we've created, or Jack created. This is California. This is our #1 cash crop. This isn't a ancillary, like, let's see what we can do in the future. If we mess this up, we're destroying one of the last thriving economies in California, and it's too important to take chances with that. A grassroots effort is possible in California. We have the momentum. We have the right. We have the right petition. We address again. Jack went through this for 25 years, up and down the coast. He's run this past every cannabis enthusiast in the state, and then we've continued that tradition. And there's no reason not to go with the best in California. We don't have to be first. Thank goodness we didn't do Prop 19. Thank goodness we weren't ahead of the curve on this Colorado-Washington trend of calling it legalization and still creating a class of criminals. This idea, right. I mean, in my study of history, I'm finding out that we didn't win alcohol prohibition. We lost alcohol prohibition 100%. We've gone around for this last century telling everybody how we won up. You ever heard that before? Don't worry about this cannabis thing. We won alcohol prohibition. We're going to win it the same way. Nothing terrifies me more these days when I hear that. I get a chill, because more people went to jail in the 10 years after alcohol prohibition for making alcohol than during the 10 years of alcohol prohibition. Everyone's got a picture of alcohol prohibition and the wars and the machine guns and the gangsters and the car chases in the Kentucky backwoods. Yeah, that all happened, but then they declared it legal, and more people went to prison for making alcohol after it was legal. We could do the same with cannabis. We could say, hey, it's legal, and watch more people go to jail in the next 80 years than went to jail in the last 80 years. And then what have we done? We're all hypocrites. And we've really endangered and imprisoned our friends while they think we've done something good by making it legal. So we don't really make it legal. If Jack always said, if you can't grow, it's not legal. This idea that we're going to be legal patients and let 4 or 5 corporations make trillions of dollars, and let us not forget this could be a $1 trillion issue. The thing I keep running across is everyone wants to talk about cannabis in dispensaries. No one wants to talk about building hemp cars and hemp fuel. I got a Mercedes-Benz I've been running on hemp oil for 6 years. Not because it's easy, because I can't grow it in California. I'm getting Canadian hemp and Chinese hemp and putting it in my Benz and running it because it runs my car better. My car will last 5 times as long. The next 5 cars I have to buy, I don't have to buy, because I'm not running my car on petroleum. I'm running it on the fuel is meant to run on, vegetable oil. And of course, hemp oil being the best and most renewable resource on the planet of that. So that's the scale we're talking about. We're talking about the $10 to $20 trillion industrial market building planes and houses and cars. That's all in the Jack Herr initiative. Also, you can get into that business for $1,000. Any aspect of the cannabis industry, you're not going to be regulated out of, and I consider that to be the fundamental principle. Yes, we want to free pot prisoners. Yes, we want to limit taxes. But the key is who gets into the industry, and nobody has addressed that as clearly and definitively as Jack Herr did. So the multi-trillion-dollar hemp industry is ultimately what we're talking about. And for 8 years now, nobody's addressed that except the Jack Herr initiative. Everyone's talking about cannabis and dispensaries, and yes, it's an important $80 billion industry, and we're all very close to it as patients, and we all know how important it is for medicine. But we're talking about planet medicine. We're talking about when we can shut down the nuclear power plants here on the coast. We're talking about when we quit cutting down our trees and we quit using petroleum. We don't get cancers. We don't have to eat Rick Simpson oil to cure our cancers when we quit poisoning our environment. And again, there's only one initiative that addresses those. And I implore every one of you to read the Jack Herr initiative and sit down for a second and reread it. I read it a couple times a week and have for 8 years, because I keep trying to figure out what can we do to make it better. How can we reach out to other groups and make these compromises? But there are no more compromises. We're looking out for the patients, and that's all there is. The compromises they keep trying to get us to make are, well, let's create a captured market. Let's just hinge it in a little bit so big money has an easier time functioning and taking over or controlling the cannabis market. Those aren't conditions we're willing to meet. Those aren't compromises we're willing to make. Jack wouldn't let us. So hopefully, and our ultimate goal is to just get people to come back to the Jack Herer Initiative and run this. We have 3 big fundraisers we're holding over the summer. We believe we were going to have the funds to get on the ballot. We believe we're going to have the funds to run the secondary campaign. We don't think we need $10 or $20 million to run ads and let people know that the Jack Herer Initiative is worth voting for. That's what this is about. That's what our grassroots effort is. And we almost, again, just to remind people, in 2012 and 2014, almost got on the ballot initiative with less than 30 grand each year. Enough volunteers, enough, I mean, we were closer than anybody wants to believe. So we also don't need to raise 5 or 10 million. We're looking at $500,000. We're looking at 600,000, and it's a slam dunk. We're on the ballot. We can actually let a lot of our volunteers relax for the year and not bust their butts as they have for the last 8 years. Yes.
Patrick, given the nature of the fact that we've now seen the debacle, now that we've seen the debacles of Washington and Oregon and Colorado, and the dilemma of legitimization, we'll call it, into a commercial marketplace. And so this issue of how to merge a medical cannabis program with a recreational marketplace has been the bugaboo. That has been the thing that has torn even accepted initiatives apart once they hit the legislative body. What is in the Jack Herer Initiative that addresses that clearly and cleanly so that the body politic can look and see, oh, that's what you have in mind. That's what we're not going to get into.
Right. No, we protect and honor the medical systems that have been set up in the state. We protect people in cities where they're trying to...
Specifically, how?
Through the language of the bill. And again, that's really where I encourage everybody to sit down.
And how does it distinguish the medical from the recreational?
The key difference will be medical will be tax-free and continue to be tax-free. There's a limit of excise tax put on personal or recreational use, adult use, and that's limiting it at 10%, because we see what happens with unlimited taxation, 40, 50, 60%, and huge underground markets, which still create a criminal element, which still keeps our prisons full. So the key is reasonable taxation, plus what an unfair burden put on an industry, 60% tax or 40% tax.
So reasonable taxation clearly takes it out of Jack's own mind, where no tax.
No. Jack said that a few times on stage in very passionate moments. He wrote the 10% excise tax into that bill. We added no GMO cannabis in 2012. Again, he encouraged us every year to keep current, to keep on it. We put in some realistic wording about DUIs. We watched Washington turn 99% of the cannabis community into felons behind the wheel up there with a ballot initiative. So yes, we're scared of what Sacramento will do. We're scared of what legislators will do. We would never take the Jack Herer Initiative to Sacramento. I would never waste time with that. I know if we got one senator in Sacramento to sponsor it, that would be a miracle, and we would never get voted on. So we know this is going to come from the people.
Does the initiative set up 2 governing regulatory bodies for medical and recreational, distinguishing it, or is one entity governing both?
One entity governs both, and yet the distinct difference would be the taxation. Because again, recreational use, as Dennis Perone said, is really medical use. All use is medical use. Some is going to be preventative, some is going to be people have their diseases and they need a more specific type of medical system. And the key to that will be the tax-free status. Other than that, fair and equal access is what it's all about, whatever your use is. Our vision is in the next 10 years, we believe most people are going to be juicing cannabis. Our studies and the ways this is all evolving and our general knowledge base is we're all going to be juicing this a couple times a week, and it would be, $1,000 worth of cannabis to shove down that juicer unless you have a garden in the back. And the 99 plants and 12 pounds that you're required to grow. No, I'm sorry, you're not required to grow it. You're allowed to grow it. That's our 2020 program. 2024. Right, 2024, we're going to make it
during the war.
During the Second World War and the first 75 years of this nation, you had to have 100 cannabis plants growing on your land, or you didn't get to keep your land. So it wouldn't be that unrealistic. But we will allow 99 plants at 12 pounds, and that eliminates most issues for most people. This idea of cops still checking to see how much cannabis we have, and we're allowed to have 6 plants or 12 plants or 4 ounces or 8 ounces, all just maniacal. That just plays right into the police state. That's going to make sure that more people are, at least we keep the prison population we have right now, and that is unacceptable. I mean, this should be a revolutionary movement. This should be people in the streets pumping their fists, because they've been locking us up by the millions while pretending this is common business. So are there any other questions about the Jack Harris? Yes. Sure.
Just a point of information, do you agree to have your likeness used on social media?
Absolutely.
Okay. My question was, the problem we hear all over these forums, I'm a proponent of MCLR, by the way. I have read your initiative, and I have nothing personally to say because I'm not here to argue. I'm here to build consensus for whoever has the best initiative going forward. And I fully agree that if we split it up to more than two, we're going to be dividing the vote and nobody's going to win. So obviously we all have to work together. Okay?
Absolutely.
More than two?
More than
two is allowable?
Two would work, but more than two is probably not a good idea. So in Riverside County, the Board of Supervisors wanted to ban growing, and in Temecula some people got together and they went and talked to the Board of Supervisors and they said, okay, we'll allow it as long as you have setbacks. Property, the size of the property would determine the amount of plants, and you would have to be 10 feet from the property line to prevent diversion. You don't want kids reaching over the neighbor's fence, taking buds. So my biggest concern is CCHI doesn't go far enough to set up policy and puts that in the hands of the state. In your document it says, we want the government to do this, we want the government to do this. I don't trust the government. And I would rather we had a larger document that locked it all down for our safety than to have a small document that says, okay, government, here's our basics. Now you work out the details. I don't trust the California government.
I understand that as well. We're all skeptical of government at this point, and it's really the intent of law that you understand in the Jack Harris Initiative that protects us all on every different level. We can go through and address it issue by issue and end up with a 30 or 40 or 50-page initiative that then has little things lawyers will pick away at. Judges and lawyers love to get into the nitty-gritty details, whereas as issues arise, and there's 2 pages of legislation, again, that was molded like a piece of poetry over 25 years. I keep referring to the Jack Harris Initiative as legal poetry, because every time I read it, it just resonates as more brilliant and more concise and yet bigger. And yet each time I read some of these lines, they get bigger by the nature, and it's kind of that poetic nature where you're reading it, but you realize, oh, this means something really big. And that's why I say you got to read the initiative and then reread it, and then read it from a judge's point of view. Then read it as you're sitting there thinking about, well, what if somebody's in trouble and they're facing, what's a judge going to do when he's looking at this law? The nature of the law is so protective of the patient and the individual and the cannabis grower and the cannabis user that the judge has no option but to lean on their side, much like Prop 215, also written from a very grassroots point of view. And 18 years later, there's no limit on plants. You don't have to have your rec on you. Your rec doesn't run out. These are all policies we set up. But when it goes back to a judge, the judge always says, well, I'm reading the law here, and that doesn't make sense. And it always leans on our side.
But 215 was damaging to us with the Supreme Court of California because of what it didn't say.
Oh, right. I mean, again, it didn't offer us hemp for personal use.
No, as far as bans, I don't think local counties should ban unless the voters vote on it. I don't want a board of supervisors telling me what medicine to use.
Absolutely. No, the Jack Harris Initiative won't let local bans. It protects a state right across cities and states. It protects every citizen. And maybe more importantly than even what it does here in California, it's the Jack Harris Initiative, through a brilliant series of additions, quotes the 9th and 10th Amendment to the federal Constitution, and it challenges and repudiates federal law. So yes, we're setting up the best system in the world for cannabis in California, but also challenging the federal government immediately to defend the classification of cannabis. So we honestly believe...
So what do you propose we do about the problem we have with competing initiatives? How would they do something about it?
I wish I knew.
Even more importantly, I mean, really, the rule of law is meant to govern the public square, the body politic. We are members of that public square, of that body politic. We're cannabis citizens. Many of the public square are not cannabis citizens. The rule of law is meant to protect the public square. And so all the adjudication around regulation, around usage of a particular substance that affects the public square is what this is about. And the Jack Hare initiative allowing for 99 plants on anybody's property within that public square is pure lunacy to most of the people I know in the public square who are not cannabis citizens.
Right, they won't vote for it. We will.
Not only will they not vote for it,
We'll
they'll
vote for it.
rail against it.
Yeah, we've heard that for 20 years, but we've had polling done in the last 3 or 4 years that shows the average citizen in California totally supports the Jack Hare initiative. They support legalization, then when they read the Jack Hare initiative, those numbers go up. And that is rare anywhere in the world today, to have a cannabis initiative, to have a cannabis supporter, then get into the nitty-gritty. Usually the numbers go down. With the Jack Hare initiative, the numbers go up.
So this general questions, and so sure, everybody wants cannabis to be regulated.
No, that's what I'm saying. The poll started with, do you want it to be legal? 55% said yes. Then they read the Jack Hare initiative, and the numbers went up from there. So the exact opposite of what the cannabis establishment's been used to tell Jack Hare to his face. Yeah, we like what you're doing, and that's real sweet. We'd like to get the prisoners out too, but it's not going to flow to Modesto. The housewives in Sacramento are going to let this happen. It's simply not true. We have scientific polling showing otherwise now. So the scare tactics about how conservative California is.
Cannabis as a medicine is where we're stuck.
Exactly.
Most of the body politic does not believe that this raw plant material qualifies under the medicine term. And so believing that they're going to allow a so-called patient to now start growing 99 of these plants that don't correspond to what they go to the pharmacy and buy, and now the feds have proven, and none of you are talking about the federal government barreling down the highway attempting to take over cannabis as medicine.
I think I just mentioned that the Jack Hare initiative challenges and repudiates federal law and will force us into the Supreme Court or in some setting like that to end prohibition in America. This could be the last initiative in America. This could be the last stand, because we don't just focus on the state level. We demand the federal government address this issue on a national level.
Which they are. The current Senate bill really draws an enormous line in the sand and says, okay, if this is medicine, then we're going to reschedule it. We're going to start doing the research. We're going to determine what components of this plant really qualify as medicine, and we're going to put it out into the medical system.
Much the opposite of what we're doing. We've researched this for...
Let me say something if I could. It seems to me like...
Can we give...
She's been speaking an awful lot.
No, this is this gentleman here.
Okay.
I just have a question. I have to leave, sir. That's why I want to... I have a question about the taxation, if I may. Because you had mentioned how, under the medical, there would be no tax, and recreational, there would be a tax. My question is about allocation of taxation.
That's one of my favorite questions.
Yeah, because, like what's happening in Colorado is that they're able to, I guess my question is the money going to go into a general fund, or are we going to be able to allocate taxes towards things like building schools and obviously they always bring up the point about rehabilitation. But that I hate.
Anybody
that.
feel they need to be rehabilitated from their cannabis use?
I just want to know the taxes are able to be allocated to good programs as opposed to just going anywhere.
Jack Hare, Richard Davis, Chris Conrad, none of that's in this initiative.
Right.
Half of the taxes, half of the excise tax, 10% excise tax, is put back into cannabis and hemp research in California. Because we are 15, 18, 20 years behind Germany and Canada. They are literally, I don't know if you guys all know, 1/3 of this year's Mercedes-Benz is made out of cannabis. And Audi and BMW are almost at 30%. So, I mean, this is the direction the world's going.
And
they're already
Washington
making...
State just allowed unlicensed hemp growth. Unlicensed.
Unlicensed hemp, that's where we're going, right? I mean, again, we get little... And yet they still are locking people up for 0.5 nanograms in their bloodstream while they're driving.
That's the cannabis side.
Right.
We're talking about the hemp side.
Well, we're talking about all sides. Again, the Jack Hare initiative addresses it all as one issue, as I believe, as we all, I think, should be.
Dr. I'm convinced
All
that you and your organization have done a hell of a lot. What we're here to do today is not to debate the small points. We're here at phase 2. I was at the other meeting they had a month ago to see these organizations all get together and come up with the best of the best. Obviously, if your Jack Hare documentation has progressed over the last 20 or 25 years, it's probably pretty meaningful, and you've studied every little, nuance about what's going on.
So why not fold it in?
My question is,
Right.
Dale, to you, what is your organization of your CCPR see of Patrick and his organization? Do you serve on their board?
I do not.
Okay, I think that with what I'm an interested party.
Fold it in.
And I'm truly eager, like everyone else, is taking up 4 hours of their Saturday afternoon to see you guys move forward. You've got a head start. I think it's great. But I think that you and your board need to embrace this gentleman and at least look at a document that has been around for 25 years that is now nuanced.
No, and they certainly have, and yet we seem to hit a wall when it comes to the DPA, when it comes to, I won't go through the whole history of this, but there are people in this industry who are very intimidated by limiting taxes, very intimidated. They'll do anything to stop us.
Step away from the tree.
Trust me, I thought
Well,
about
but let's not kid ourselves. The reason there's so much legislative hype about all this is every little municipality and agency and jurisdictional body is looking, okay guys, we got something rolling, we can get some more tax revenues here that we can piss away in another direction. So I mean,
maybe
Exactly.
the bigger issue is actually who's going to control cannabis.
Yeah.
I say often that this can be split up.
They're doing it behind our backs.
This can be split up 1,000 ways, or it can be split up
We
100,000
would all be
ways.
naive to think that the feds aren't spending lots of time and human resources, anticipating when all this is going to become legal. And in a breakfast meeting I had with a gentleman this morning, me and his wife, that know a whole hell of a lot more than I do, there's a lot of things that are already in motion that we probably aren't even aware of. Or that, So
Absolutely.
the reality is that this grassroots thing that Dale and her cohorts and folks are putting a lot of time and resource in, and the huge number of volunteers, let's strip ourselves naked, let's all jump into the arena, and let's see who wins, because there's a lot of stuff that all these organizations have to offer. And I don't believe that there should be two initiatives. There should be one on the ballot that speaks to the industry.
I mean, if we're California, we've been doing this as long as we've been doing it, and we're as coalesced as we say we are. We should be the real civilization around cannabis, and we should be the citizens who speak to what the core essence of life complaint is. And we can't be doing it from all these different positions.
That's what we're asking. We're saying if you believe in the principles of the Jack Herod Initiative, support the Jack Herod Initiative. If you believe in the principles that come out in these other initiatives, support them,
So
of course.
let's
And
all get
we aren't
behind the
intimidated.
industry coming up with some fundraising, which is what my primary comments were at the last meeting. There needs to be an idea together of how you're going to have on the 20th of each month, something happens at every dispensary that's going to want to be involved about reform and so forth, to get money to help fund this organization.
Absolutely. No, we got a whole
One of the things
fundraising
I
plan
think
over the
that's
next 6 months.
not being said enough is the significance of DPA's power and DPA's intention about controlling this entire process. And what really is going on here is attempting to craft a coalescence that can compete with DPA.
That's right.
I'm embarrassed by DPA sometimes and some of the principles they put forward. Again, I'm horrified by some of the things I've seen happen in other states, and it's unfortunate. But in California, it would be tragic. Again, this is our largest cash crop, and we're a big farming community. We're, the Central Coast, and still, there's more money in the cannabis industry than any other agricultural industry in the state. And if we mess it up, we're gonna miss it. If we spend the next 5 years arresting
Farmers
tens or
all
hundreds,
belong to cooperatives. Growers are all in it for themselves.
well, that's extreme. But
Come on, it's
again,
more like
it's
that than the
growers are
farmer
desperately trying to
community.
survive by making us
You can't
medicine.
draw a correlation to the agricultural community. It's not the same.
But it could be, and it will be. Of course, it's not the same because we've been underground for 80 years and in the gray zone for 18 years. So yeah,
It
no,
takes
as
an enormous amount of cooperation to bring that together, and so far we haven't even seen the cooperation amongst the groups that are trying to pull an initiative.
we're all right here talking. There's cooperation right now today. I mean, this is the cooperation. We're all on the same
It's the first
team.
time that come on, in fairness, it's the first time we've really.
Yay!
There.
Group hug.
That's the evidence.
No, I think yes.
There's a gal in the back. I
everybody's
really
getting-
want to give her a chance.
Okay,
She's been trying
everybody's
for so
getting a
long.
little bit spooky here. So hold on, one moment. We're going to take a little break in about, say, 5 to 10 minutes, okay? Then we're going to come back in about a half an hour after we hardy or whatever we're going to do, have a little something to eat. And then this conversation that's coming out from people is so important. I guess you all get that, right? These little tidbits that people bring up, and how important this is that we hear this, that all of us hear this, and how we're going to act on it is going to be my question. What are we going to do about it, and how we're going to manifest this in a way that goes forward quickly, because we haven't got much time.
I hope you let DJ speak before we have our break.
Okay, that's right.
Because I need to leave.
This lady over here has something to say.
Yes.
Apparently she's got something very
Yeah, I
important to
just
say.
wanted to know, I mean, other than these meetings, what's being done to bring patients in on these boards? I feel like, and I'm sure it's been mentioned on that one of the biggest failures for the last time we voted on this was because nobody could agree, and I know that's one of the things we're talking about today, but also because there's so many conflicting ideas between a patient and a business person and the legislation and all these different ideas, but what's being done to bring these two together and put all these ideas in one room, other than just these meetings? Is there a board, is there a way that patients can get involved? I mean, and how are we bringing this to the general public as well?
I'm Sarah Armstrong. I'm the Industry Director for Americans for Safe Access, which is exclusively concerned with patient issues. And that's why we're working with CCPR to make sure that the patients aren't left behind. We haven't seen any indication that CCPR plans to leave the patients behind, but I am, in my capacity as the Director of Industry Affairs, building a statewide network of collectives so that when it's time, people can easily go into their collective and get information and find out what's going on. I will not support any initiative that hurts sick and dying people. I'm sorry, I won't. So the minute I see that happening, I'm done.
And how are you guys getting the opinions of the patients and what the patients want? How do you know I mean, I know you guys do a lot of work, and I'm 100% supportive as a patient myself, but what are you doing to hear the voice of your patients that want certain things in place for themselves?
Go to safeaccessnow.org, sign up, and we have a number of different listservs that you can get on. There's one called CCSA-ASA at safeaccessnow.org. I'm sorry, I've been sick all week. And you can sign up there and get periodic email updates. There are listservs where your voice can be heard. You can chime in. I like the CCSA one because it's the political arm. And that's all they talk about is upcoming legislation and different things like that. I would love it if patients were more involved, but it's very difficult for patients because if you come forward as a medical cannabis patient, you can lose your kids, your job, your housing, your paying contract with your hospital. It sucks. And I don't blame any patient who chooses to remain quiet in the face of those kinds of consequences. That's why I left Glidca. That's why I'm at ASA now.
But Sarah, I need to address this because the language that we use is vital in this concern. And so when you use the word collective so generally to describe retail cannabis outlets, you're being disingenuous.
That's what they are, supposedly.
They are supposed to be, and most are not collective.
And the reason for that is it's very hard to get the patients to participate. They want to come in, acquire their medicine, and get on with their day. So
they call them as they are. The operators are operating dispensaries, not collective.
So to get back actually to both of you and partially back to your question, obviously these stakeholder meetings, because I mean patients are the ultimate stakeholder. The rest of us were here to serve them, right? So part of it is trying to get as many to show up to these as possible and filling out a lot of these surveys. It's something you can easily take to your friends and also have them fill out. But this is a lot of why I started this sticker program, is because they get that sticker for $1, and right on the sticker is the website that they can go sign up to do two things that are both very, very important at reformca.com. Add your voice. Tell us why. Tell us what's most important to you. Tell us who you are so we can tell others about you if you're willing to do that, because it's not facts and figures, it's showing them the face of the patients to a large degree of why, or the POW of why, but the who. And then the second thing is to add your email address so that as we continue to develop the information, the surveys, because every time we bring this in, we do these meetings, we compile the data, we fine tune, and then we put it back out again and do the process all over. So as Sarah said, it's really hard to get the folks to come out of the woodwork, and that's why you all get a big woohoo, because you all showed up. Give yourselves a little love, seriously. And I want to introduce DJ.
Do you think it would be beneficial, though, to form a committee of patients and not just the policymakers and the NPP and NORML and all these, but the patients and the collective owners, so they can come together and
so that they're represented on the steering committee.
Yeah, right. On the actual committee rather than just coming to these meetings and hoping that our opinion gets heard.
Well, what about it? Are the patients going to get to sit on the steering committee?
So, of course, we have patients involved in all this, and to a certain degree, I just want to remind people that ASA is not just for collectives. ASA is also for patients, and there are a lot of patients that are involved. Well, the patients I've talked to would be very offended to think that they don't have a voice in ASA, because I know a lot of patients that feel that they do. I realize that a lot of us come with different opinions about some of the folks that have been here for a while, whether you know them personally or not. But the reality is, most of the folks that are spending their time, their energy, their money, their lives, like Patrick here, like Sarah, like DJ, like me, I would really rather go take a nap and spend some time with my 2 young boys. This is like not,
There's no question
but this is the way to do it, though. Is just keep asking you to show up, give us your feedback, give us your input. There's no magic bullet to get every patient out there and their opinion, because a lot of patients won't stick their head up. But those that will, like you, I'm hoping will fill out a survey, and you think like, say, maybe 10 of your friends. So you represent that group think there, and we get a few thousand from each area across the state. And we have a pretty good idea of what a large cross-section of a lot of different people think. And that's kind of the point of our coalition, is it's not just cannabis consumers or cannabis advocates. It's also, to your point, mainstream. Because Latino moms, they're not just focused on deportations. They're focused on making sure their kid has good food on the table.
To the dispensary to pick up a survey. How do they get it?
They are voting.
They're
They do vote.
They vote and they read. Talk, and you can talk more after the break. Let's take a break.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I was getting yelled at for not answering the question as though I was trying to avoid it. So I'm going to just go ahead and stop. I'd really like to introduce DJ Kute. She's right there. Awesome.
One thing I want to say, there's not only stakeholders of the patients, but what I see is the people in jail and their families and the suffering there. Okay, let's not forget that. That's what I'm down for, is to end this suffering and that aspect of this world of prosecutions and all the paranoia that's attached with it. This is what we got to talk about. That's my heart here. Anyway, here we go. Introduce yourself. We're looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you, DJ.
Thank you, Bruce. I really appreciate you inviting me to be here, because this is really important. My name is DJ Kute. I got involved with medical cannabis back in 1997. I had the pleasure of being invited by who at the time was the president of board of directors of National NORML, Mr. Steve Dillon, asked me to serve as the education director for Indiana NORML. And I promptly put on the country's first medical marijuana conference at Purdue University. After I got done there, I ended up in California kind of completely by accident. Found myself working with Dale, got hired by Berkeley Patients Group to be their social services director. I was the education director with Richard Lee when he put Measure Z on the ballot in Oakland. I was the campaign director for Measure R in Berkeley, that we ended up going to a recount, and then I teamed up with the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and we sued the county of Alameda, and Measure R had to go back on the ballot as Measure JJ. I was the education director with Americans for Safe Access for a while. Got to share an office with Don Duncan for 4 years. That's a whole other thing. I was got trained with Chris Conrad to be a court qualified expert. Spent last summer all around the country consulting people on how to open a dispensary in their state. I've probably consulted well over 1,000 dispensaries in the state of California. The organization I run is the Patient Advocacy Network. We really saw that the patient's voice was not being heard or sufficiently represented. We're the voice of those patients who are too afraid to speak for themselves. And so we go out there and We've done a lot with public policy. I've probably spoken to every city council and every county board of supervisors here in Southern California. I sat at the table to draft the regulations that are now in San Francisco. So we've been very, very active the last 10 years. And what I'd like to really impress upon you is that the stakes have never been higher for cannabis in California. We're starting to see medical go backwards around the country. They're starting to shut down dispensaries in Washington. We're seeing the full pharmaceuticalization of cannabis. New York's regulations for medical marijuana, you cannot sell flowers. You can only sell tinctures and pills and capsules, and the dispensary has to be run by a licensed pharmacist. This is being highly supported by DPA, okay? So I want you to know that we're really up against something. We've heard for years about Philip Morris buying up land in the Emerald Triangle and all these kinds of things. So I want you to know this is very, very real. And whatever we come together to put together on the ballot has got to protect us. It's got to make sure that we do it the way that we want to do it in California and that the feds stand down. So what happened after Prop 19, which I was not a part of, I'm just going to give you a little history, is a group got together because they thought Prop 19 was written in the back rooms, and there wasn't transparency and there wasn't stakeholdership, and people like myself and others who've been drafting public policy for the last 10 years were never invited to the table. And so a group said, hey, let's start fresh, let's open up a list, and let's get everybody's ideas about what should be an initiative. And that's what Save Cannabis was. Okay, and we were all being told by CCPR and others, oh, you can't run an initiative in 2014, you have to wait in 2016. We couldn't figure out why. Then the Riverside opinion came down, and the Save Cannabis group said, oh, hell no. If it is irresponsible to not to try to get something on the ballot in 2014, given the Riverside decision. So I'll tell you now that the outline of what is MCLR, I passed around a handout, a one-pager. If you did not get it, I ran out, and maybe Bruce would be so kind to let me run a few copies and I'll bring them out to you if you don't have it. But I brought one sheet that talks about what we do. The frame of MCLR is CCHI. And kind of like what Greg said earlier, is the issue with CCHI is letting the government do it. Now, for the last 5 years, I've been very active in Sacramento, killing every bill that the Senate and the Assembly have put forward, because it was an attempt to grab and treat medical marijuana like recreational. We're talking about dispensary operators having to come up with $100,000 to $150,000 annual fee, plus all your staff has to have a license, and blah, 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 blah. So I go up there and tell them, look, you cannot profit off the backs of the sick and dying. Proposition 215 says it has to be affordable, and we end up killing the bill. So to allow Sacramento to go ahead and make those rules seemed very, very dangerous. And so from what I understand, Dave Hodges is the administrator of Save Cannabis, and he said when Save Cannabis first opened, there were about 2,100 people that originally signed up on that list, and we're reading the initiative. About 1,200 people helped write it, and about 38 lawyers have looked at it and given us their ideas about what should be in their civil things. We had some criminal things to deal with. And then because we were at that race to try to get it on the ballot for 2014, we did. We ran short of funding. We ran short of time. Our group sat down and attempted to get CCPR to just take it. It's like, look, we don't really want to run an initiative. We just wanted to come up with transparent language that people could get behind. Please take this initiative and run with it. I think John Lee basically begged, almost to the point of tears. I was on that conference call, and it was radio silence because they didn't think we should do it in 2014. So this is where we are today with multiple initiatives trying to come forward. And I hope we can come together. I'm really happy to say, maybe some of you heard that Omar Figueroa has also drafted an initiative, and he's agreed to come to the table with MCLR and fold his language into our initiative. If you have this handout, you're going to see up at the top that there's a link to a bit.ly doc that you can go to right now and put your input and your ideas and everything you want in this initiative right there. California is a huge state, right? To try to get everyone to the table is hard. So that's why we did it digitally. That's why Save Cannabis came on board to get everybody's ideas so we can always have a forum. I'm always amazed when I go on there, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. There are people logged on there writing their ideas. You know, I mean, go on there at 9 o'clock in the morning. There are people on there drafting their ideas. It's a very active community on Save Cannabis. So I encourage you to get involved, because that was the whole point, is to not be transparent, to be inclusive. And what we've heard is this attempt at unity is really more about an attempt for control. It's who's going to control the purse strings, who's going to get the biggest paycheck for doing the work, which I understand. But most importantly is getting everybody around the ideas of what these different initiatives do and why they're here. Like CCHI, MCLR is written. Right now, like I said, we're incorporating what Omar Figueroa has put in there and some of the new ideas that have come forward. And we're going to continue that, and it's going to get refiled. There are too many stakeholders. There's all those 1,200 people that have put forth on it, and we keep building proponents, people who want to sign on and be proponents of the initiative. So we know it's going to get filed. It's going to happen. And we would really hope that, you know, somewhere between that time that we've got more people behind one initiative. If not, it is, you know, what it is. I'm not saying I'm happy about that, but I don't know what else I could possibly do about it. So mostly what I want to just, instill in you is take a look at it. Let us know what you think. That's the whole point of MCLR. Is it's not like here it is, take it or leave it. It's come look at it, come to the table with us, and let us know what we missed or what's really good or what's really bad. Now I have tried to stay out of statewide for a long time because of just this very thing. It's kind of nasty. And when you've got these big national policy orgs kind of trying to steamroll you, which in my 12, 15 years of doing this, I could probably write a novel about, you know, the things that I've seen some of the national policy orgs do to undermine the grassroots advocates, steal their work and go fundraise on it. I mean, I've watched it for nearly a decade, and it's atrocious. So the last thing I want to do is get involved. But MCLR does such a good job of ending the ban, protecting patients, and allowing there to be lots of different models for the business, not just adult recreational, but also for medical. If you want to be fully a nonprofit type of organization, a collective style, you can do that. If you want to be a for-profit dispensary, you can do that too. So it allows for a lot of different business models. If you want to be the mom and pop of cannabis, you can. If you want to be the Anheuser-Busch of cannabis, you can, because we know that's coming too. But we were really, really afraid with someone as powerful as DPA that we'd be looking at the little dispensaries and the little growers disappearing and not being able to afford really huge fees in Sacramento. So we took that framework, that initial outline that is CCHI, and it's just been added to. I think that was kind of the outline that originally ended up on Save Cannabis was CCHI. Let's see how we can make this more clear, more defined, give Sacramento clear guidelines, and put in provisions in here that voters will actually vote for. Because I agree with Patrick. CCHI is beautiful. When we polled it, we were getting killed. Okay, it just doesn't, the voters just don't like some of the provisions in there, and I don't know if it would prevail. So we wanted to put something that we polled that, you know, we think will prevail. So I'm presenting it to you and asking you to take a look at it and tell us what you think. And I'll take a couple questions because I know everybody's got to take a break and stretch. And I'm just going to go around the room from this end to the other with anyone has questions.
It's great to finally meet you in person.
Yes, fellow proponent of MCLR.
Yes. How likely are the three of our groups to meld into one with public input?
I mean, that's really hard to say. I mean, you know, I know that we've had meetings, some folks from CCHI and myself and others, we've had some meetings to try to figure out what, and it was a really great meeting. It was, what are the things that we totally agree on and where is it that we totally disagree? And what it comes down to is you know, and I don't want to speak for Patrick, but it's the simplicity of CCHI, that one-page approach to let's do it this way. And our approach is we're really afraid to let Sacramento fill the details, so we do the devil in the details for them. So I don't, to answer your question, I guess I don't know.
What's your sense of percentage? We're going around the room.
Yeah, so, you know, I don't know. How likely, Patrick, how likely can we come up with one initiative between you and I skipping through California together?
Can we meet the plant count halfway in the middle?
Yeah.
Can we go from 99 to 30 and from 12 and 6 to 30?
It's not a matter of that. How do they feel? How do the leaders of these initiatives feel
That's more important. Yes, yes.
Where do you all sense? How likely is it that you're all...
I know I'm always willing to work with people. I'm always willing to sit down and work with...
What percentage do you believe you're all going to come together?
33 and a third.
That is rough. I don't know. Yeah, it is. You know, I guess I really can't answer that other than we're going to keep trying. We're not going to give up. I mean, I was really delighted that Omar Figueroa is going to sit down with us.
So that means we've gone from 4 now to 3?
Right.
Yes, as far as I know, I don't know of anybody else who's getting ready to put another one forward.
Matt Kuhlman.
Yeah, Dale, yeah. At the start of this...
DJ, this is DJ.
DJ. No, I'm talking about Dale.
Oh.
Dale and DJ. I have the same statement as this gentleman over here is making. It's time that you guys leave your egos outside the door. You look at the purpose of this whole thing. We're the constituents. You the guys are up there, they're doing the job. And get your heads together, because you're not all going to win. And if you think you're going to win with your initiative and you've got the backing to put it on the ballot, you're going down the wrong path.
Well, like Patrick, we haven't been invited to the table.
So I think you all need to take us out of the equation. Get you guys that all have these 3 or 4, maybe even 5 or 6 organizations, get together and then come back to us, because we're going to fail unless we come up with one initiative, in my opinion.
No, I agree, and like I said, in 2014, I watched John Lee beg with tears in his eyes to bring us to the table with CCPR, and it didn't happen.
The clarity that this man is asking about is really literally, and your response was, we haven't been invited to the table. His query, everybody's query is, who controls the table?
That's a really good question, and that's why we just built our own table.
Okay, so you didn't say that.
So that's what we had to do. I mean, that's what Save Cannabis basically had to do.
Everybody else has to come to this table, is what you're saying.
No, I mean, we're willing to work with everybody.
Where is?
I don't know. I'm not control of that. Just because I'm holding the mic doesn't mean that I'm in control of the situation. I'm just presenting to you that there's this initiative. It's drafted. It's done. The fiscal analysis from the LAO's office is phenomenal. We were just quoted in the paper as Kamala Harris supporting this initiative.
So the question is to Dale and to Patrick, is this possible, and to you as well? Can the 4 of you, when this thing is done at 2 o'clock, get together, and how do you have a subgroup of the group to really get our heads together and say, let's be one?
One of the things that is not made clear to this body politic assembled here is that DPA controls the table. DPA controls the direction of legalization in California, and it's what all of you are up against is the DPA machine and the DPA intention to bring legalization and legitimate commercial marketplace to California. Is that not accurate?
It's fair enough, yeah.
It's fair. I guess I don't necessarily feel that way. I feel like we got a strong enough grassroots in California. We don't need DPA. I've never talked to them on the phone. I don't feel like I need them. I feel like I need you.
But the point we're talking about is what are the forces aligned against our purpose? And the point I'm making is that it's DPA that is the force that is aligned against our purpose as grassroots.
Then it's as important for the community to reach out directly to the DPA. They know who we are. If they know who everyone else is...
Well, you're not helping us figure out how to do that because you're not illustrating it in that way.
Call DPA. Contact them.
Thank you for indicating that they're the beast that we need to pay attention to.
Mark?
Yeah, hi. My name's Mark O'Hara. I used to run the Patient Care Alliance here in Los Angeles, which have relationships with 300 dispensaries. We strongly oppose Measure D. And I just want to make a comment about DPA. I think what you said is true. And I can tell you the first person I ever met with on this issue in LA was Stephen Gutwillie, who is the executive director of DPA.
We tried to write our own initiative. It was a good enough initiative, and I want to applaud all these people who have done what I've done a little bit of for most of their adult lives. And I also want to make a point as an old white guy. It's pretty awesome to see 3 really strong women up there running the show.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for that. Not to leave you out, sir.
But they're all white too.
Yeah,
they're still all white too.
I'm half Italian, so if that helps. But I want to make a point about DPA. We wrote an initiative with a bunch of strange ideas in it that we just came up with a very good election attorney, and they were good enough so that Ethan Nadelman flew out from New York, he runs DPA, to come meet with us in his fabulous place in Manhattan Beach he was renting. I asked Stephen Gutwillig this question: would you be willing to invest in running, as I have in my career, a statewide initiative in California that reached out to people, that held meetings just like this, where, and by the way, Sarah knew, and DJ knew, and I know, and you knew, that people were going to be yelling at us, because that's what happens in meetings like this. People yell at you, tell you you're an idiot. So, would you have meetings like that? Would you be willing to co-opt the gay and lesbian community, which during the scourge of age was really the front line of this fight? Would you be willing to co-opt students? Would you be willing to have students, participate in this? Would you do any of those things? And he said, we'd love to do all of those things. And I said, well, how many campaigns have you run like that? And he said, none. And I said, well, I know one guy who worked for you, and he was like me, he believes in that, and he's willing to join this fight. Will you join with us? And he said, absolutely. And that's the last time I ever talked to Stephen Gutwillig.
When was that?
That was 3.5 years ago.
3.5 years ago.
Okay, so let me be honest with this, okay? All of these people here are doing what needs to get done to protect all of you. And DPA respectfully, and I was invited to speak at their international conference and did, on a panel in 2012 with 6 other proponents of statewide initiatives. So we're down from, it was 7 then, we're down to 3.5 or so now. So that's halfway there, right? The reality is, and I say this very respectful of George Soros and DPA, they do not get what this is about. What they are about is not this. So if you're here and you're liking what you're hearing from any one of the 3 or everybody here, that's the group you should pick. And I'm not here to recommend anybody. I'm an agnostic. I like all these folks.
That's not an accurate portrayal. They do most certainly get this. It's not what they want.
Okay, fair. That's a fair.
And that's a very different statement.
That's a very fair characterization of what I was intending to say. And listen, what they have is George Soros, okay? That's big. I want to
Which is its own intention.
Yeah.
And you should speak to that, because that's the machine and the behemoth and the beast we're up
But listen, I've been in California politics for 25 years, and I'm probably the only one in the room who's worked on more campaigns than Jay, and I can say this to you. This can work, even if DPA is in the picture. All right, David is still getting good press for beating Goliath, and it can be done again. I've seen it happen in California. I just want to make a plug. There are other local things going on. I'm currently involved in a campaign in Oxnard, in Ventura, and out by Victorville. And so if you want to find out, feel free to come up to me. There are other things besides the Roman candle of November 2016 that are going on right now where you can make a difference for patient access locally here in Southern California without killing yourself.
But tell me, see us afterwards about it, okay?
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to. Yeah.
Mark, does anybody have any other questions, guys? I'm really eager to let you guys break. I'm sure you guys want to get up and eat, and I really want to let you do that.
Okay, one question, yes.
I hear what everybody's saying, and it just comes down to this is not what I expected for this meeting. It seems like everybody's pulling it out of their pants to see who has the biggest one. That's not going to get anything accomplished. What these gentlemen are asking, realistically, in layman's terms, can you guys bring all of your documents together to one table, and can we all come to a common ground? That's all we need, is to come together. I like everything all of you guys are saying. I can't pick a side, because you guys all have certain points that are so fucking good.
And how do we bring it all together?
So how do we bring it all together into one faction?
We would love for you guys to tell us how we'd like to do that, because like I said, we've been trying to get to the table. We've asked for meetings. I've been to the shouting matches, the crying. I've seen it all. I would love to be able to do that.
Okay, so
it's hard.
The opportunity. Let's, instead of making excuses, let's lead from the front. All of you guys that are up here, you hear what we're saying. So after this, go sit down. Go talk, and then bring it back to us again. Because you guys are on it, man. You guys are going to change this shit. I can see it, but we got to do it as a team. Teamwork makes the dream work.
One initiative.
I support that 100%. We're really, really trying, and yet at the same time, wouldn't it the most tragic thing to be to have only one choice in California? I mean, this is a democracy, and the idea that there are different ways of legalizing.
I know, I meant to fight the machine.
Right.
We're all going to come to it
It
together.
comes down to funding, man, and what they're all on about is the funding sources that enable this to go forward. DPA has all the freaking money they need. They ain't asking any questions. They ain't asking for no donations. They're barreling down the highway because they're going to win. And the only way any of this is going to happen is if enough money rises up to adequately compete with DPA. And so far, this group has not assembled enough cooperation to get a program of funding in place around a collective document that everybody agrees to. So it's all funding, and all of this language is meant to comport with a funding purpose, so that they can take it to the street and get everybody to say, here's my money. You're going to go compete with George Soros.
Amen.
That's right. You got it.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it to Bruce. Guys, thank you so much. I'm gonna have a handout, and if anybody wants my card.
Thank you for everybody that showed up. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it personally as a man on the front of the courthouse every day. And make yourself at home. We can hang out. We're supposed to go until 2 o'clock. Maybe we'll end it early. Maybe we won't. But communicate. Give us your email address so we can communicate in the future to make you aware of more events, more opportunities to do what we did today, and to get these people to get organized, to get it together, and cooperate with each other, and to get it done so we can all be free at last. Free at last.